Mechiper of Neisur Mekor Chatei Samachas Bashon. The pasuk says about Yom Kippur that the Kohen Gadol should be mechaper once a year for all the sins, all the transgressions, all the separations that happened between humanity and the Creator, where humanity offended their internal nature, their subtle nature, their true reality within, got offended by an imagined reality that they created in their minds. And so once a year, the Kohen Gadol would go in Lifnei V'Lifnim, go into a very special state of mind. And from there, he would clear out all the separation. He would return the will of the Spirit to the core, to be in charge of reality. And that's the crown. That's the crowning where we say, Keser Yitne L'cha Hashem Elokeinu. We give the Creator a crown. The crown is when His will is fulfilled. When the desire of a king gets fulfilled, then he's crowned as king. And that's the language, the natural language of what a crown is saying, is that we're celebrating what's inside his mind. We're celebrating what's on his head. And what's on his head, what's driving him, is his will, is his ratzon. So when his ratzon comes out into fruition and the world is led by that ratzon, by that will, then we are celebrating the contents of that brain, we're celebrating the contents of that spirit. And that's when we put on his head a crown. That's how the king receives his power, is by the will of the people to celebrate his will. And so once a year we would, on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol would provide a service to humanity that would reattach them to the collective, that would reattach them with the true will of the divine spirit that gives life to all of us. So it says, Yesh b'zeh dvar mamikim, this is the Degel Machne Ephraim. Yesh b'zeh dvar mamikim lefi ani izdati, many deep things. So on Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol goes in to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, to the inner chambers, so when he sprays the blood, he says one, achas, and then he says achas, because one goes up, he does one to the top, and then he does 7 to the bottom. Achas lemala v'sheva lemata. And so the 1 to the top, he says 1. 7 to the bottom, he says 1 and 1, meaning the 1 from the top and 1 for the bottom. 1 and 2, the 1 from the top and 2 to the bottom. 1 and 3. And he didn't do it again and again, he simply counted like that. So he only did 8 azos. He only did the activity with the blood 8 times. But the way he would count would be 1, 1 and 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4. So he's going to explain why he would do this. What's the language telling us? What's the deeper meaning? He says, "Ein gemor tam shetzich las keteves achas al kol echad, v'yesh b'zeh lefi ani zdati tam derech hasod, kedei abina nikra achas, kebina olam hamachshava, v'sham ha'avdus kam." So he says, the one that goes to the top represents thought. In thought, everything is united. The spirit has a thought. Regardless of the contents of the thought, it's just one. The thought is one. And then from that thought, come out the attributes, come out the emotions. So when the emotions come out, the 7 different midas, they're coming all from the bina, from the understanding, from the thought. So in thought, they're united, achas, one. Then there's achas v'achas. From that one thought comes one emotion. Achas v'shtayim. From the one thought comes another emotion. Achas v'shalish. The same thought, another emotion. So everything is coming from the thought, all the 7 emotions. So that's how the Kohen Gadol would go into be mechaper, is to tie these emotions back to thought, back to understanding, back to its origin. V'shamu achdus gomer, and the word of thought is complete unity. Rak beguf mispardim anofim. So it comes out to the body. The divine body is the body of the emotions. So we say, like in Pasach Eliyahu, where he separates all the different spheres to different body parts. So comes out, let's say, Ledroi Yamin is smaller. First comes the right hand and the left hand, which is Chesed and Gevura. So they're coming out from thought. And now comes out the right hand, which is a attraction towards something, a Chesed, a desire, a connection. And then comes also the other side, protection. Then comes Gevura, then comes discipline or strength, depending on the situation. So, and from there it goes forward. So the whole body is coming out from that one thought, from that understanding. So the head represents the thought, and then the 7 limbs are the 7 emotions. You have 2 hands, you have the body, you have 2 legs, and the reproductive. So then you have from the head, from the machshava, coming out all the 7. So that's machshava nikra achas. The thought is called one. There, the spirit unites with its thought at all times. This is how the spirit unifies with its concept of self through thought. That's how it knows who it is, so to speak. V'zeu achas. This is the one that it comes up. Achas lemala. Shenichel bo etlas moichin kesech chochma bina. Shesoy the machshava nikra achas. So kesech chochma bina, the 3 elements, the 3 spheres that go into thought, they're all united as one. They all come out as one. You can't separate between them, because the first time we become aware is thought. So we can't analyze the elements of thought to separate between them. So it's one, that is 3. It's one, that is the understanding, bina, but within it, there's already a desire, and there's a chachma, there's wisdom. So there's already a manifestation, but it unites as one. It's a unity. It's a unity that cannot be separated. That's why chachma and bina are called trein rein de lo misparshin, 2 lovers that never separate. So when this comes out, the unity, the one, which is the side of machshava, so that's achas. The Sheva hu malchus. The Sheva is the 7th, is the malchus that comes last. Nimtze kol sham kol as spheres. So now you have 10 spheres. The one that goes above is really 3, and the 7 that go below together is 10. So always we go back to the one. So we don't say 1 above and 7 below, and we leave those 7 below separate, because then those 7 below can start arguing with each other. Those 7 below can start causing issues. So we have to go to all 7 and bring them back to the one. 1 above, and then 1 below, back to the one above. 2 below, back to the one above. 3 below, back to the one above. Bringing everything back to machshava, bringing everything back to the place of understanding from where they come forward, from where our emotions manifest. So this therefore reminds the one above, that's the bina, in order to sweeten the judgments at their root. How do you sweeten the judgments at their root? By realizing that it's you, it's your understanding that's causing that judgment. So go back, understand differently, and it's gone. Instead of arguing with the judgment and trying to prove why it's wrong, undo it in its source. Undo it by recognizing that you shouldn't have gone there in the first place. And then you go somewhere else. Then it's like it didn't happen. So you bring it back to your understanding, you bring it back to its root. And there you can be mamtik, you can sweeten it within the root. This is the concept of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the unification of our beliefs to our understandings. Our beliefs are what come after the emotions. After we think, after we understand, then our emotions get involved, and then we believe. Based on our belief, we act. Now we're uniting that belief back to its source, back to our understanding. We're bringing that belief above emotion. We're bringing it to its root within understanding. That's the concept of Yom Kippur. To unite, he calls it the mother, which is understanding. She's the wife of wisdom. Wisdom is the husband. The wife is understanding. And the child is beliefs. Those beliefs are going back to the mother, going back to the root to be purified. That's the concept of Yom Kippur. That's what happens on Yom Kippur. That's the yichud. V'zeh yesh lefarish remes. The Kippur al b'nei Yisrael, the pasuk says, should be mechaper on Klal Yisrael, mikol chatosim, achas b'shon. So he says the word achas over here, once in the year. Hi olam abina. The olam abina is called achas. Sheyichlal v'yisachet sham, that he should unite everything there, ba'avoidem, u'mayla yimtku kol adinim, then this will sweeten all judgments. When we bring back beliefs to understanding, then no judgments can come out from there. Only when we separate beliefs from understanding and we allow our emotions to come first, we allow our emotions to come from our understanding and then our beliefs, then we cause separation, we can cause judgment, we can cause problems. And through this comes kapara. When the beliefs are in accordance with the truth, then judgments don't come forward. Then we don't need forgiveness because the truth doesn't require forgiveness. When we separate from the truth, we offend the truth. When we offend the truth, we need forgiveness. How do we get forgiveness? By coming back to the truth. So the Torah is telling you, the Kippur, how is he going to get forgiveness to the nation of Israel from all their sins? Achas b'shona, by uniting them to the achas, by uniting them to understanding, bringing all the judgments back to the root. Through that, he can transform their beliefs that they should match the understandings, that they should match the wisdom, that they should match the truth. And then there's no longer a separation, there's no longer an offense, then comes kapara. It says, V'hina yesh bechinas oshan, called olam shona nefesh. So everything that happens on one level, whether it's happening in the world or it's happening in time. So olam is like space. And in space, we have all the different levels of existence, all the different levels of manifestation in the planets and the stars. They all represent energies that allow humanity to manifest as they are. So that's their place in space. Then we have time. So as the planets move around, different planets are in charge at different times, and different planets interact with each other at different times. So that's the same elements acting out in time. So that's called shana. The first one is called olam, space. The second is called shana, time. And the third one is called nefesh, consciousness. That these two, the space, the planets, and the shana, their rotation, activate nefesh, activate consciousness in order to manifest, in order to create life. So space, time, consciousness, that's the order of creation. That's how we come into existence. And so everything that exists in one of these elements exists in the other two because they create each other. They are each other. It's the same thing, just from a different perspective. So therefore, it says what we spoke about now, like the pasuk says, here we spoke about Shana, that this is the Yom Kippur that happens in Shana. That once a year, the Kohen Gadol goes into that space, the Kohen Gadol representing the highest level achieved by Klal Yisrael. He goes into that space and he, with his nefesh, in that time, goes into the holiest place, and therefore that unites all the sources of reality to be kind, to remove judgment, so that there's no more judgment on Klal Yisrael. And all the judgments get taken on the soil Hazazel, which gets thrown down. So if somebody still has demons that think that there needs to be blood, or there needs to be some type of forgiveness through atonement, through sacrifice, so that goat represents that midah. So we feed that midah on that day by throwing down the goat. And so all the spirits can believe in the atonement, can believe in the truth of the forgiveness. So they can come back to their natural state, so that they can stop judging, so that they can stop ruining life on this planet because they think that it needs to be ruined for whatever reason. So this is the way to remove midas hadin, to remove judgment from within the nefashis, from within the people, because they've gotten conflicted with their beliefs. They've gotten separated from reality, and now they're in a warpath, they're in conflict. So here we come Yom Kippur, and through the holiness of the person, the time, and space, we rectify all the spirits to be on the side of humanity, to be pro-humanity, to be for the good of reality. And so, so he says, when you understand this in the time, you can also understand this in consciousness. Because in consciousness, we can access that space even when the time is not Yom Kippur. We can access that space all the time. It's always available in consciousness. So it says, the Torah, learning, wisdom, removes sin. It reconciles us with reality. The time where the wise sage sits and teaches, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mechaper v'nesem shel Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgives the sins of Klal Yisrael, because as they reconcile with the truth, their sins disappear, their differences, their judgments start dissipating, they start falling apart, because they can't stand in front of the light, they can't stand in front of the truth. If they realize how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu is invested in this creation, how much he wants it to succeed, how much he loves what's happening, all the judgments start falling apart. Like wax melts in front of the fire. We can't keep judgment when we see the magnificence of the Creator. We can only judge others and ourselves when we're ignorant of the ways of the Creator, when we've separated ourselves, when we've barricaded ourselves into our little imagination, and we think that we're at war with something. And then we become harder and harder. The ice freezes over, like the kerach hanoira. So there's the hell separates into fire and ice. There's the hell that's fire, and there's the hell that's ice. The hell that is fire, while we're in our body, we experience it as emotion that is larger than us, emotion that our body cannot contain. And the hell that is ice, we experience as emotional numbness. We can't feel nothing. And so when we're in that emotional numbness, when we're in that place where we are in the kerach hanoira, we're in that awful ice, so then we can't feel anything. We're barricaded in, and then we judge everything. But then if the fire comes, if the warmth comes, if the realization comes, if through wisdom we recognize the magnificence of what's taking place, then the ice melts. Then we can start feeling again. And when we feel, we can't judge. Only when we're demonic, only when we're separated from our true nature can we judge. So when we melt, when we come back to being who we really are, the judgment disappears. So therefore, when we're teaching wisdom, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechaper v'nesem shel Yisrael. The judgments are just melting from learning truth, from learning the true nature of life. Which Torah are we talking about that can bring forgiveness? This is only Torah Lishma, Torah that's learned for the appropriate purpose. If somebody learns Shaloi Lishma, learns Torah for another reason, he would have been better off not being created, because the amount of judgment that he's going to suffer is going to take him directly to hell. The inyan Lishma, Haina L'Shem Hey. The inyan of Lishma is to learn for the Hey. The Hey is the last letter of the Shem Havai. The Shem Havai is spelled Yud, Hey, and then there's a Vav and a Hey. So the Hey is separated. The Hey, the manifested portion of life, the portion that lives within humanity, the human spirit, is separated from the name, from the wisdom and the emotions that cause it to be what it is. And so it thinks that it's an island, that it thinks for itself, that there's nothing leading it to think the way that it thinks, but that couldn't be further from the truth. It is the end result of a long chain of divine influence coming into the world. And so when that last Hey is separated, when that manifested part, that one that's actually within the body, that can perceive itself, doesn't recognize its divinity, doesn't recognize its source, so then there's Galus. That's the nature of Galus. That's the one that's within the body doesn't recognize that he's attached to everything outside the body. He sees himself as separate. So that's the Hey, that's the Shechina, that's the manifested part of creation that is lost, that is confused. In the name, there's two Heys. There's the Hey at the beginning of the name that comes after the Yud, and there's the Hey at the end of the name that comes after the Vav. So Hey Ilah, Yevechinas Ima Ilah. The upper Hey is like the mother, like I mentioned before. She's the wife of wisdom. Wisdom is the father. V'hai Tator, Yevechinas Ima Tator. The daughter, the lower Hey, is the mother of the manifested reality. So who is running the manifested reality? Consciousness, our thoughts. So the thought part of us is the mother of everything that happens in this world. Everything moves forward like that. So the original wisdom creates the understanding of the collective that creates life, that creates us. And then we have that relationship where we receive from there. And that's why the Chachma of the Shechina, the Chachma that's in the second Hey, is called Chachma Shloima. Chachma Shloima is when human wisdom becomes perfected. That's how we inherit the power of the Shechina. That's how we gain access to the Shechina, through the intelligence of knowing who we are, knowing how we operate. So V'zeh Sod Yom Kippurim, this is the secret of the forgiveness that we receive of Yom Kippurim. Why is it called Yom Kippurim? Yom Kippurim means that there's two forgivenesses. Shtei Kippurim. It's a Lashon Rabbim. So these two are the two Heys that we combine together, the understanding and the manifestation, the belief, our thoughts. So it says, whoever learns Torah in order to save that Hey, so he's constantly in that state of Yom Kippurim. He's constantly getting forgiveness. He lives in a state of forgiveness. He never leaves. I'll say it's not similar, one who learns 100 times to one who learns 101 times. So the Baal Shem Tov says, what does it mean 101? It means that within the 100 he remembered the one. He didn't just learn 100 times. He learned 100 times, but for who was he learning? He was learning for the one. He was learning for the machshava. He was learning in order to perfect something real. So then he adds, he brings into his learning the one. Who's the one? The one is the one that created life. That's what makes it lishma. That means that the 100 times that he learned for a real purpose. And therefore he gets forgiveness. So when he's teaching Torah Lishma, everything gets forgiven. Forgiveness comes through learning the truth and merging with it, by becoming the truth. That's how we receive forgiveness. So he's bringing it back to the pasuk. He brings in the one. So now he's learning Shana not as year, that like in time before. Now he's learning it as Shana in Nefesh. Shana meaning like shoine, like learning. So he's bringing achas into his learning. Also, then he goes into a state of Yom Kippurim, a day of forgiveness, a day of atonement. I'm saying it in short, but there's a lot of depth to it. Here's another one. It is known that the Torah, Kadosh Baruch Hu, and Klal Yisrael are all one. Ki ha'adam hu HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ha'adam, the word ha'adam, the man, the person, he is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. B'chin Hashem Havayim, Baruch Hu b'mileh ma, Mispar Adam. So if we calculate the numbers of the Shem Havayim, so the Yud is 20, Yud Vav Daled. We write out the full letter. So Yud Vav Daled is 20, Hey is 6, Vav is 12 or 13 if we spell it with the aleph in the middle, so it's 13. And Hey is another 6. So we have 20 plus 6 plus 13 plus 6, which comes to 45. 45 is Gematria Adam. Aleph is 1, Daled is 4, Mem is 40. So you have 45. And that's the gematria of the Shem Havaya. The Shem Havaya represents the intelligence that feeds the intelligence of man. So that when it comes into manifestation, the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how do we see it? We see it by the intelligence of man. That's why when we make the bracha on the Chacham, we say, Shecholak michachmas lirev, that he gave from his own wisdom to those who fear him, meaning that the wisdom that we are experiencing in those who fear him are his wisdom. It's not another wisdom. And that's what we learn from the name. That's why the name is Gematria Ma. So it says, Ki Odom HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'raisa Yibremach mitzvahs asay, Shisa mitzvahs asay. The Torah gets dressed in 248 mitzvahs to do, and 365 mitzvahs that you shouldn't do. And that's why a person has in his body 248 Averim, 248 body parts, and 365 arteries. Is when a person learns the Torah appropriately, as I Mekarev Kol Avarav L'Shoshan, he brings back all his body parts, all his limbs and all his organs. They're all uniting to the root, to the source of where they were created, to the very spirit that created them. They're coming back to serve him because they realize through the Torah where they belong and who they are and what they're supposed to serve and what the purpose is of their creation and who created them and why. Every body part becomes like a carriage, like a chariot for a specific commandment, that attaches that body part back to the root, back to the spirit. Then he and the Torah become one, with complete unity. Just like we know that a person before he's born, he knows the whole Torah. What does it mean he knows the whole Torah? It means that all his body parts, all his limbs and all his organs, everything is exactly where it needs to be. He didn't apply any stress or any pressure or any manipulation to any of his organs, to any of his limbs, and therefore they're all exactly where they need to be, and therefore he knows the whole Torah. But then he comes into the world, starts interacting with humanity, and loses his connection, and loses his peace, and loses access to himself, and loses the knowledge of who he is and what he's supposed to be doing. So when we go back through the Torah, when the Torah connects you back to your source, then you and the Torah become one. Like a man and a woman that unite. So the Sabbath Mishpatim is in the Zohar, and over there it gives a lengthy marshal, a metaphor of the love between a man and a woman, and compares that to the love between a man and the Torah, a man and wisdom. So that the Torah in the beginning, she hides from him completely. And he looks and he can't see anything because the Torah is Isha Tznuah. It's Isha Yiras Hashem. She doesn't show her face to one who is not worthy. She doesn't show her beauty to one who doesn't have the attributes to deserve to be her husband. And then as the person becomes closer, and as the person builds up a desire, and as the person works on his attributes, the Torah starts showing herself in different places and like peeking out at him, a moment here and a moment there. And then he runs and he looks and he wants to see what he saw and he can't because the Torah hid from him again. And then there's this entire romance that plays out until finally the Torah reveals herself to him and he can see all her private secrets and all her inner chambers and all the beauty that has been designated for the righteous when they become aware of who they really are. So that's, there he compares the relationship that a man has with the Torah to a relationship that a man has with a woman. And he becomes united with the Torah as one. There's no separation between him and the Torah. Like the Gemara says, that fools are those who stand up for a Sefer Torah, but don't stand up for a Talmud Chacham. They don't stand up for a man that has wisdom. They don't realize that the man is the goal, the man is the purpose. The Sefer Torah, the scroll, was written in order to create such men. And so the respect needs to be for the man. And the reason we respect the Sefer Torah is because it has the power to create such men, because without it, those men wouldn't exist. And so when the man has the Torah, he and the Torah become one. And like it says in the from my flesh I will see the divine. It says, if when a man comes together with a woman physically, so the Torah calls that they should become to one flesh. So 1,000,000 times more so, when we're talking about spiritually, when a person becomes aware, when a person gains wisdom, that he and the Torah mamish become one. There's absolutely no separation. This is what he's saying. He and his learning become one. Hashem should help us that we should be zoche to learn the Torah in such a fashion so that we can unite with it. And through that we'll be zoche to the Gula Shlema and Harav Yameinu.